Hi, David Toulis. Thanks for giving us just a couple minutes of your time. We are here in Chattanooga, 92.7 FM, and I argue that you should love your neighbor and buy local. Near is better than far, small than big, simple than complex, and down in 5-point type, you have to get those reader glasses on. You, my listener, with a single gray eyebrow hair that your wife is asked to pluck, you get those readers on. And note, in 5-point type, personal is better than corporate, and physical than abstract. That's you might say, the rubrics, the axioms of local economy. And I'm your local economy guru, David Toulis, consulting now with another local economy guru who ran for mayor, Dave Crockett. We're brought to you by yournews.com. And the number to call is 800-8949. That's 800-8949. If you have a question for Dave or for Dave, please call in. And the question is, in the larger sense, what is the future of Chattanooga? Can it be great again? It had a heyday, if you will, in the 1980s and 1990s, and Dave Crockett was instrumental in much of that agitation, much of that building, that sort of self-conscious self-awareness of Chattanooga as a city. Of course, cities are just poetic constructions; they don't actually exist, but they are. We talk about them as if they had characters of their own and wills of their own. It is a pathetic fallacy to do that, but that's what we're engaging in: cities with characters, cities with futures, with independent wills, if you will. Dave, how can Chattanooga? Let me just put the question to you squarely: how can Chattanooga do better? What does Chattanooga need to do to be not just successful, but not just competitive, but to be strategic? Dave Crockett.
Well, I think that you have to focus on something that is an emerging opportunity, something that is going to be important to everybody. And you could say that was the automobile age, or the computer age, or the .com age, or one of these things that, in retrospect, everything about everything changed. Everything about everything changed. And it was going to create more jobs and opportunity and drive everything in our lives. Everything was going to change. Now, a tsunami, when it's out at sea, is about a foot high. You go over it in a boat, you don't even know it. And the trick is to recognize that tsunami before it breaks on the beach and you're under it instead of on it. And when you wait, and you're not Silicon Valley because you own a laptop. I mean, you're on the back end of this thing. That started in the 30s.
Well, what are the waves, if you will, coming towards us that we need to be aware of and not be hit by, Dave Crockett?
We need to look at them, but the one that we focused on in the late 80s was that something nobody even knew of, called sustainability, a new way of making decisions where every dollar you spent, you had to create economic opportunity, measurable jobs, better the environment, don't just keep it even, but make it better, and the community and equity, where you improve social things, and you improve all those things every time you make a decision. Now, that was very simply a ride-on to what W. Edward Demings did in his work with total quality management. And at first, everybody asked, what is quality? What does that mean? CEOs were doing that. What does that mean? And people said, well, I can't afford to do that. I can't afford to spend that money and reorganize like that. Well, now everybody does it. Everybody from the smallest business to the largest, the smallest organization to the largest, has a total quality management system. And that is a system that talks within the organization so that every person knows what they do affects all the other parts. And that, excuse me, Dave, and This is just the next and highest logical iteration of that. So you can't go in 1990. You couldn't find anybody who had a sustainability officer, or knew what it was, or was implementing it, or thought it was strategic to their business. Now you can't find one that isn't. And we were trying to, in the early 1980s and 90s, we were going to be a defining place for what that word meant and how you did it, how businesses and companies and cities practically applied something, not in an ideological sense, but practically. How did you take every dollar and in a city, for instance, and say every dollar, every decision is going to produce measurable outcomes on the economy, on the environment, on the community, on equity, and on education, every one. And every employee is going to think about those four things when they're shaping what they do. CEO can't do that. CEO can say, this is our philosophy, please, or not, it's not an option. We're going to implement this through the entire company. And that's how you do it. Now, the emerging opportunity there was fought by many here in Chattanooga. It would be fought by some groups today. But we're on the other side of that curve now. Every city, every university, every company has that. And we were going to identify ourselves as a place to come to find out how to do that by meeting with their peers, whether it was the Plumbers Association or the Automobile Association or any part of the economy. They all were trying to figure out how they implement this thing. We were going to be the meeting place and the defining place.
Well, what is the wave that's the tsunami wave that's a foot high now that we want to ride and not be hit by? What is the content of that wave? What is the subject of that wave? Where does it come from? Where are the people involved in it, Dave?
Well, we have to sit down and think about it. And if it was a thing that is apparent, we were the first city in the country to declare that we were going to do this and had a strategy to do it. And we were ahead of everybody. That's why Osaka.
Are there two options ahead that are like that? Back then it was sustainability. Is there anything now we could say here? Well, it could be this or it could be that. Is there something?
I think that's possible.
Approximate.
Well, I will take some teasing out. That's the reason I got in. I saw this wave, I thought, in the 80s, and I developed strategies, help companies develop strategies, large companies. And so I thought, why not do that in a city? Take the same principles and apply them to a city. And we were way ahead. Now, they're easy. If they're sitting around on the ground and you just pick them up, fallen fruit, then it's already too late. You missed that opportunity. It will take some careful thinking, and it takes a lot of guts because you're swinging way out in front of the ducks. You're to hit those targets.
Chuck Marone of strongtowns.com has gained an amazing following the past 2 or 3 years, Dave Crockett. And he says that the problem with American development is that it's too top down. How shall I say? It brings a lot of, there's a meat high, a kind of sugar high, but there are out-year costs that are not accounted for, even in the comprehensive financial annual reports, the CAFR of a county or city, they're not accounted for there. And that would be costs for repair and maintenance. And these developments are led by big box retailers and suburban sprawl developers are spreading neighborhoods all across the landscape. He favors development of downtown. I think one of his main points is we have to support our downtowns and maintain them strong because that's where capital is. That's where the tax base really is. And Chattanooga does have that interest that Chuck Marone emphasizes downtown development.
We've done it by brute force, but frankly, David, I was in South Carolina right after about 5 years after they had, maybe 10 years after BMW came there. and we were on a panel, and they had the Senate chairman of finance, rock rib Republican conservative. And how he got to that point was just like what you said, is, they had a lot of glitz with BMW and Michelin and a lot of other companies.
And what happened at this?
What happened is that they had their tax incentives and their expenditures so out of whack that they looked down and said, here's what our maintenance is on infrastructure. Here is our projected tax base. We are going to go bankrupt as a state. And if we don't do something about how we allocate capital and this unrestrained, give me a 4-lane highway and I'll build a mall, and building
that's unsustainable.
That's unsustainable in every sense of the word.
Unsustainable because the city and the city fathers are not accounting for the out year cost of maintenance.
They're elected officials, and they're there for 4 years, and they're looking for stuff that's low-hanging fruit. And, having a ribbon cutting ceremony, and then they'll be out of office in 3 years. So what? Who cares? Oh, you bring in and have the big development project. Well, let me tell you where is that in Chattanooga right now?
We have that, don't we?
We have that. We did studies, city-states, did studies in South Carolina, in North Carolina, Charlotte, and in Bradenton, Sarasota, Florida, in Minneapolis, that said what the perception was of public officials and the public was, every time you cut a ribbon, every time you cranked up a chainsaw or a bulldozer, that everything was right. And you were making money. And everything. Creating capital.
Creating wealth, creating opportunity for more people.
Creating all that. And they weren't.
And why weren't they?
Because, number one, they were giving away so much public incentives to do those large projects that, and Helen Burns Sharp is Helen Burns Sharp,
right,
is the person in Chattanooga is looking at one aspect of that. I wish we could look at a broader scheme of things, where much more money is spent, but we were spending money to set up these things. I talked to a town in California.
Finish your point. Don't go into the detail.
Okay.
We're spending money on these things, and what? They don't have a good return. They have a lousy. There's no calculation on the return.
Nobody even tries to do the return on the front end. You do
they do the return on the front end, but not on the back end, which is 20 years out.
Yeah, they do. They go, here's what we're going to spend. Give me a calculation that supports that in the public realm. And they never work. And people have, a big project mentality. And what I was going to say in California, the two little cities I was speaking to the local elected leaders of California, and when they had Proposition 13, they took away the property tax ability to raise property tax, so they had to start using sales tax and other measures of collecting revenue. Well, two little adjoining cities got in a bidding war over a Walmart. And one of the cities gave away its sales tax, did all these other things in order to get Walmart to come into their area. Well, when they did that, there was a Kmart in town. It left, number one. And two, somebody else made an even better deal, and they didn't get, not only did they lose their Kmart, they lost the Walmart to an adjoining town who was willing to sell out more. That's how the states compete too. And he got up and said, don't talk behind my back. I'm that mayor who made that decision. Worst decision ever made by a municipality. And we've done that all over the place. You know, we've competed here for big box stores to get them to locate, and that is just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, but listen, Dave, we got just a minute. What are the ideas that would save us from that mistake? What thinking do we have to replace the lure of one more big box chain, one more big store anchoring shopping center?
Or
what's the idea?
Looking at places like Ottawa and saying, wow, bulldozer and chainsaw noise out there is unbelievable. It's growing. We're making money. Well, no, we're not. We're subsidizing a losing concept, and it is going to, as a state, for our state leaders, they can chase around the squeaky wheel, or they can do a long look. But that is unsustainable.
What is the losing concept, Dave Crockett?
Losing concept is somebody says, I want to build out here, and you say, fine, how much roads and whatever, and we've got a current proposal to move a sewage plant out there. And hey, no problem, we'll just follow it. And by the way, we'll open 5 new schools, and we'll have to move fire and police units out there. We haven't grown anything as a county. We just move the pieces around on the board. The only thing we've really grown is the infrastructure and the tax bill to the citizens.
And the fact that we've had this subsidized infrastructure growth, Dave Crockett, we can build and build and build. And this is the strongtowns.com analysis.
Absolutely. I'd like to come back on and talk about that very specific one.
To get to the point, I'm trying to encapsulate what you're saying. We have these subsidized developments, and now I forgot my point. I'm sorry.
Subsidized infrastructure,
and go on. What?
And you have a perverse tax system that incentivizes the wrong things. It incentivizes people to go out and develop where there's not any infrastructure. So that creates a need for infrastructure.
There should be development and capital creation context in the city or downtown.
I would just take that away, not necessarily downtown. The city of Chattanooga is, a big place. And 155 square miles.
So the sprawl, this whole development mentality creates sprawl, which of course requires more cars, more auto-centric activity,
more infrastructure. So you see, you just chase it with more and more and more. We have about the same number of students as we had in 1950, and the infrastructure costs are enormous. Because we're not spending money on the quality of education. We're spending money on not how we educate, but where we educate. We're just spreading it around. If you had
capital plants,
you're all over. We're just spreading the growth pattern.
And we're not taking into account the claim of these obligations that we take on now in bonds and maintenance requirements. Roads to pipes to buildings to stadiums.
It is. I like sugar high. I think it's a high of something else other than sugar. You can't get this crazy on sugar.
Well, this is Dave Truitt. We're talking with Dave Crockett. Dave, the listener who's aware of elections wants to know, are you going to run for mayor again?
Let's talk about these kind of things. I'm not
being evasive, Dave.
I'm not evasive. I hadn't given that any thought
about it. Okay.
But I do think about these things. And if we got the politics out of these kind of decisions, it would make it easier. And the picture I always had on my wall in IBM and in city government and wherever was a picture of Carly Simon. You know, Carly Simon.
What was she singing?
She was singing, "You're so vain, you must think this song is about you." And I had that at IBM because I wanted them to know that the song wasn't about IBM, it was about the customer. And in the city is, if you're so vain, you think this song is about you. It isn't about the mayor. And it isn't about the elected officials.
Dave Crockett, thanks for joining us.
Okay.
Dave Crockett is a former city council member, ran for mayor, and is, by my judgment, is the leading loco-centrist. I'll claim second place while he's here. He is taller than me by 2 or 3 inches and has a very, very wide and tall hat. But I have a bow tie, and I hope that you'll find that because the people and the regulations might prohibit having any kind of possession or land or property or structure. David Touris, Weather Radio.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
In Oak Ridge, police say a woman in a wheelchair was carjacked. It happened Saturday in a parking lot. Carjacker crashed the car at an intersection, had to be taken to the hospital. His identity and condition are not disclosed by authorities. Criminal charges are reportedly pending. A Lafayette woman issued an apology after she was accused of stealing from a charity jar at a MAPCO. Shannon Barrett turned herself in after her face was plastered all over TV and social media. She didn't remember stealing the money from the donation jar because she was intoxicated at the time. And a man who previously served a 186-month federal prison sentence on a drug conviction was reportedly caught again, this time transporting 8 ounces of meth. Kenneth Cowboy Schwartz told DEA agents after his arrest on Friday that he has been selling drugs all of his life. Val St. John for Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7, Action News Now.
Sam Jordan, News Talk 92.7 Action Sports Now. Former University of Georgia athletic director